Hello. Today's episode is a conversation with Alma Cook and Chris Thigpen, two musicians and friends of mine. Alma is a musician, songwriter, and the co-chair of the music committee with the Braver Angels organization, and she's done a few podcasts with them recently discussing music and politics and the role that music plays in those worlds. Chris is a musician, producer, and overall badass bass player and drummer in the LA area. This is each of their second appearance on the podcast, but this time they are appearing together, and we have an awesome conversation that goes in a lot of different directions around music in academia and the value of music in higher education generally. But before we get to that, please remember to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to consider supporting my content generally, please visit my Patreon page. Welcome to Music in Mind. Music in Mind with Anthony Calkin. Hello, everybody. This is Alma Cook and Chris Thigpen. Alma is a musician, songwriter, and the co-chair of the music committee with the Braver Angels organization. And she's run a number of podcasts with them, so go and check that out. And Chris is a musician and producer. Both have been on the podcast before, but now they are here together. So welcome.
Thank you.
How's it going, Chris?
It's good. We just moved into our new place. We live together. Not dating.
Yeah, everybody always asks that question.
Well, that's fun. How's the place?
So good.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
There's so much natural light, as you could tell. This is my bedroom that we're in right now.
Nice. It's up in the hills more. You were downtown LA before, right?
Well, it's in a valley, so literally the opposite of a hill.
Okay.
No, but it
Near
is
hills.
up north. Yeah, it is near hills. I was downtown before. There's a lot of concrete around back over there, and now it's a lot more green and spacious, and it's a lot better in a lot of ways. And I'm here with my best friend, so what more could I want?
That's awesome. Living with friends is definitely underrated. It's something I miss it from college a lot. I had three really good roommates, and we still talk a lot, but finding a good roommate is tough, so living with friends is good.
Yeah, it's a huge difference between just like living with, just somebody or a rando versus like living with, your best friend. It's a lot less of an adjustment, even if it is an adjustment, because it's like I already know you so well. So yeah, it's cool.
Have
you two lived together before?
Mm-mm.
No, I think the closest we ever came to that was when I visited you on the cruise ship, and we had like these bunk beds that were like mounted on the walls, perpendicular to one another. And I remember like the late night chatting was some of my favorite memories from that year for sure.
On the cruise ship.
Sleepovers.
I forgot about that.
That was good. It was good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no,
Chris,
but otherwise we just we probably spent the night at the same place a couple times, but nothing for more than a few days.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So you've done the whole cruise ship thing then?
Oh yeah, I did that for 2 years.
Wow. Was it a 2-year contract, or you just did it?
No, it was like 4 to 5 different contracts. But the last year that I actually did that year straight. It was like 3 contracts back to back.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So do you like it? Do you like that kind of work?
I loved it when I was there. It was time to go when I left. But while I was there, I loved it. It was amazing. Like I miss it. I would never go back, but it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, a lot of musicians I talk to have done it, like the experience for short periods of time. Mm-hmm. But I guess it can get really rough on the water. Like every time you do it, you go through some intense storms and stuff.
Yeah, it depends on the weather. Yeah, it depends on the weather,
idea.
like the storms and stuff. It can get like really bad, like super rocky. For me, it's kind of fun, honestly. But like for anybody who deals with like seasickness or anything like that, it's gonna be bad.
I bet.
Like all kinds of stuff. So yeah.
Alma, have you done anything like that? Have you played on cruise ships or anything like
not
that?
even close. There was a brief window when I thought about it. Because Chris was music director of a band, like the nightclub bar band kind of situation. Mm-hmm. What would have been more appropriate for me was definitely not the band, but more of these individual singer-songwriters that they employ. And I think the money is pretty good for those too.
Yeah,
right?
solos make good money.
Yeah. So if anything, it would have been that. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, if I could go back, maybe I would have done it. I don't exactly know why I didn't. Oh, probably because internet access would have been spotty. And I was working an online job that I thought that I was going to stay in forever at the time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like that just would have been a huge leave of absence. You do not have good internet on those ships whatsoever.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't do an internet job.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. And that meant a lot to me at the time. So now it's like, I look back and knowing now that like I lost that job accidentally, I'm like, why didn't I just, I don't know. I would have loved to do something on a cruise ship. It was fun to visit him for like a week when I went out.
I feel like the internet is everything for musicians now, or for everybody now. But.
Yeah, especially when literally can't play any shows.
Yeah.
And that's all you got. If I get invited to do one more live stream, I'm going to die. This is just like not my thing.
Have you done a bunch?
I've done a handful. I have to like pick and choose. I mean, I've done a lot. Like we talked about Braver Angels for a second in the intro. I've done a few with them because I care a lot about that organization and the cause. And it's honestly some of the biggest performances I've ever had have been through Braver Angels. The biggest. There were like 4,000. I don't remember. 7,000? Am I making that up?
Whoa.
It was several thousand people at one of these streams. And I remember looking at the participant count and being like, oh my gosh, this is by far the biggest. This is a stadium show. And then I'm playing during a pandemic. Yeah, in my bedroom.
Does that make you nervous?
Not really. No, not so much because the scale of it just doesn't even register because you don't see all the people. Like there's no way. And even if you did, like there is a point where like it's so anonymous because you don't know anybody and the group is so big that it almost becomes small and doable because it's just no faces.
Yeah. I feel like the live stream performances make me more nervous than in person. Like seeing that count, it feels really weird. Like sometimes I'll practice and I'll put it onto a Twitch stream or something just to make myself more nervous so I don't forget how to deal with stage fright.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good idea. I don't know if you know any, like, do you know the people who are tuning in? That's where it gets weird for me.
No, I mean, basically nobody tunes in because I do it at like 3 a.m., but...
Oh, that's a good hack.
That's not the pop and jump in time
for watching live stream practicing guitar.
Yeah, I love more at 3 a.m. than.
I think I would struggle if I were doing my own Instagram stream. Well, I'm not on Instagram anymore, but if I were, that'd be where it gets nervous because like, who does Alma think she is? She's like all that self-consciousness creeps in. Because there's something pretentious about like I'm gonna put up a stream and you guys are gonna watch it.
Right. Well, I don't think anybody
really
has to watch it.
Oh, they have to watch.
They have to watch it.
What'd you put up on Instagram?
I don't know. I think I probably deleted I tried to delete the account. Probably in the fall, and then it came back somehow, and so I deleted it again just like a few months ago.
They were chasing you.
They were chasing.
They're like, nope.
It's just not my space. Twitter is much more my sphere.
Yeah, I mean, you barely posted on Instagram in the first.
I know. I hadn't posted since last March or something.
Yeah, you're good at Twitter. I am so bad.
What do you try to be on Twitter?
Nothing. I mean, that's the thing is my problem is I only use social media for just like promoting stuff, which doesn't work because
no, it doesn't, because then there's nothing for people to come to. Exactly. Yeah, no, Twitter just is very natural to me. I don't know why I didn't figure that out. I do know why I didn't figure it out earlier. It's because I was strictly using it the way you were using it, right, in the promotion way. And I didn't find really like-minded people. And now that I'm in the Braver Angels, like political art space, right, there's a lot more, like I can actually be myself and offer commentary outside of music, which is, some people like it, some people don't care for it. That's totally fine. But I've developed, even yesterday, I met up with somebody that I met on Twitter, and there's this whole community of friends. I basically met my boyfriend on Twitter.
Oh, interesting.
So that's cool.
Wow. Who's not me.
Who's not you. Not dating. Friendly reminder.
Yeah, are you just gonna keep making that reminder throughout?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
you never know when they're gonna
call sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
let's reset the
chime
room
in later,
Yeah, by the way, not dating.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a random
even once we start making out on camera, we're still not dating.
Still
don't worry about it, guys.
Hey, maybe.
Hey, it's Los Angeles. It's a free country.
Exactly.
You can do what
Be
you
more
want.
open-minded.
Can we put Logic in the background?
Just to make sure.
Yeah, I always tab back and forth just to check.
That's good. That's very smart.
So you both went to Columbia in Chicago, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's where we met.
Oh wow. Okay, so you didn't know each other before then. And which programs were you in there?
Chris?
I was, what did I study? I was a jazz studies major,
Okay.
performance, upright bass, and
Yeah, I was not jazz studies, but I kind of lived between the pop departments and the jazz departments, and I was a BA in voice, so like the light version of the music program.
A BA. That's
yeah,
it. So
BA.
they offer the. Do they have BMs too? Bachelor. of
Yeah,
Music?
they do. But I think with I don't even remember. So like, don't even. This is useless, semi not accurate information.
I mean, I was a BA too, I think.
Oh really?
I think so.
Maybe.
What does BM stand for?
BM is like a B Muse, Bachelor of Music.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure ours is a Bachelor of Arts.
Yeah, it's more stringent. You could have easily been music, but it's just a different like program requirement situation. But yeah, I was BA in voice, and I think to get a B Muse, you'd have to be what they call CUP, which is such a weird acronym for it.
Yeah.
But it's the Contemporary Urban and Popular Music program, or I could have been jazz. I think. Yeah, I think it would have had to be like one of those two, but it still would have been voice.
Now I don't know which one I am now, whether I'm a BA or a BM. And I definitely put it down on like my resume, and I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not. I went to college. That's what I
Shows
did.
I mean,
how
your college
important it
loves you. Like, if somebody tried to fact check you on your degree and like call up Columbia, they would give the most rave review that it literally wouldn't matter. Not that anyone cares about music degrees. Like,
Not
can
even
you
a
play
little
or
bit.
can you not play?
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm sure that in my current job that I have, I'm pretty sure it looked good. Like it helped.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I can't really think of one time where me having an actual degree was like nice.
I think it matters if you're going into academia.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been trying to get jobs teaching at community colleges and stuff, and it's been very difficult. But of course, I don't actually know why. You never know why somebody doesn't hire you unless they tell you.
It's true, yeah. It's weird, like, you need a degree to go into academia to teach kids music, which they won't need a degree for unless they go into academia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I would say don't get me started, but I guess that's the entire
That's
point of why
literally the point of why we're
Get
here.
started. Go.
Did you want to just jump in, or?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I was interested in Columbia specifically because Columbia has sort of a weird reputation in some of the circles I've been in. Some of the more academic people kind of look down on Columbia, but actually know very little about it. And this is Columbia in Chicago, which
Not
has
to be
always looked
confused
like a
with,
really cool place to me.
Oh, yeah, their branding is, like, on point.
Exactly. But I'm interested in these places because I know Berkeley does something similar, and the conservatory in Amsterdam and Rotterdam both do a lot of focus outside of the traditional conservatory model. And I've noticed that other more classical conservatories like Peabody and Rice and things like that are trying to shift into a more contemporary world. Granted, they're doing it in kind of a strange way because they're very, very new music focused, which I don't know how contemporary or not that seems. But yeah, how do you feel about Columbia as an educational institution for musicians?
As an educational institution, I feel like this wouldn't be just Columbia. I feel like from an educational standpoint, when it comes to music, I think most schools are probably the same. And honestly, from an educational standpoint, after maybe the first like year or two, I think after that it's all kind of inefficient to a degree. There's like things you learn in the first 2 years that are like, okay, I get those chord scales and ear training and motor mixture, that's cool. Okay, that's what a tritone substitution is. Like, you learn stuff like that, voice leading, yada 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 along the way. But honestly, like with lessons, period, of anything, whether it's teaching lessons, it's really just go home and practice. So honestly, after the first 2 years of college, like, they might teach you something like like jazz arranging, or like vocal arranging. So there, you know, classes definitely have like, you know, you learn a good amount of things from them. But I don't know if it would take. It doesn't take 4 years to attain all those things.
And it certainly doesn't take $20,000 every year for 4 years.
It's certainly not 20. No, that's cheap. What were you doing?
Well, now it's changed.
Yeah, I just turned down a
24.
PhD spot at Peabody because of the debt. Or a DM, not a PhD, a DMA spot. But yeah, it was going to be...
because of the debt?
The amount it would cost, the amount of debt I would have to go in.
Oh, to go for a grad program?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant for teaching. I was like, Anthony.
No.
They make you pay them to teach.
We really got to talk about this.
Like,
school.
I wouldn't put that past a university to do.
I kind of hope that happens. What a crazy topic. That would be amazing if people started doing that.
Amazing and
university.
Not a good way. Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything Chris said. I think that with with pop schools in particular, I feel like they're marketing to a different kind of person, and a person who's actually very ill-informed about how any of this stuff works and what any of this requires. So I'm not going to say that Columbia specifically or anyone over there is like preying on the young minds of someone who wants to be a superstar, but especially like the singers that I know, the vocal department, especially like the kinds of girls usually that you'll find in the vocal department really don't have a clue what they're doing there. They just have some vague idea that they want to be a star. And Columbia with their amazing, beautiful branding and just the presentation of what they have to offer, I think give them the impression that that's the place where it's going to happen. And if they put in the work, I do think that that's attainable. But, you know, are they held accountable to do the work? Do they want to do the work? Look at the dropout rate and find out.
That's probably true with most music programs. Generally is the work that has to be done to quote make it in music or make a career in music, whether it's the pop world or jazz or classical or whatever, is mostly self-work, I think. I don't think any school can give you a career. I feel like there aren't that many schools that sort of funnel people into jobs the way engineering programs do.
Oh, not at all. Oh, I guess actually Chris is an interesting case though, because your connections at Columbia have called you for gigs.
Yeah, but that was more so the just like certain people, certain faculty members rather than the school itself. Which
That's true.
I mean, you know, but when you speak about it, it is kind of like still part of the school. Like if that faculty member works at that school, then that's a thing that the school has also like, you know, recruited and utilized. And I mean, honestly, that was the entire reason I went to Columbia College Chicago in the first place, was literally for 2 reasons. One being I had got a really good job in Chicago because I was going to Northern Illinois University before that. First I went to Western, then I went to Northern, then I finished at Columbia. I did a college tour. So I was at Northern Illinois University. No, I was at Western Illinois University, loved it there, and kind of outgrew the program. And my bass teacher left. And so I went to Northern Illinois University, which was an amazing program. Learned a lot there. But again, that's the first 2 years of school. So by that point, you know, all those, you know, the music theory classes, you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And, but so I was going to go back to Northern, but then I got a really, really good job in Chicago, a music job. And in order to keep that job, I had to go to school there. So I went to school at Columbia, Chicago. Also, the other reason I went there was Chuck Webb, who's like my mentor. He was my professor and like my main bass instructor while I was there. I definitely like specifically went like specifically for him. I was like, this guy did and is doing and does like what I want to do. So like, who better to learn from? And so yeah, he plugged me into like so much, and he taught me, but he took more of a, you know, like a personal interest and investment, basically. So the school introduced us, and we did a lot of stuff within the school, but also like, you know, he had to make a personal investment.
Yeah, I mean, he was on the Motown tour when Motown was in Chicago, right?
Yep.
And then he needed to sub out for a few days, calls Chris, and that sets you up to be on the Motown tour,
Right.
like the tour on Broadway.
Oh, that's how you got on Motown through your.
That's how I got on
professor.
Motown.
Nice.
Then Color Purple, like all that,
Sweet.
Kinky Boots, whatever else, like all the musical stuff. Pretty much all the musical stuff, in one way or another, rooted like from Chuck Webb.
I feel like the networking side or the community side is really basically the main asset I've gotten from music school, both undergrad and grad school, was just meeting people that I end up working with outside of school.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, I mean, it's your lessons is practice, and that's on me. And I think the professors I've had have given me some little like gems of tips along the way. But I would say that most of the things that I have found, I have discovered either from transcribing or from practicing myself.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me. Well, okay, so there was a certain amount of just hours that I had to put in school, especially since I did my first 2 years of college were at community college, and then my last 2 years of college were all music classes at Columbia. That was super, super intense. So just like from sheer amount of hours that I was forced to practice, I see like dramatic improvements in myself as a singer between 19-year-old me who enrolled in my third year of college and 21-year-old me that graduated. But I think that could have easily been achieved if I'd just put in the hours some other way. Mm-hmm. What I don't think could have been achieved is, outside of a classroom setting, is ear training. Like the ear training whole curriculum is some of the most valuable stuff that I ever took away from college. And the teachers that I had at Columbia, Mimi Rolfing, like super badass. Like she was the teacher that I always wished I'd had in pretty much literally any subject. Like she does not let you get away with slacking. And I super appreciated that. And I mean, Mimi, that class and Mimi's, being on my ass about stuff is why I think of her every time I do a session gig, especially if I'm doing backgrounds or something, or if I have to memorize something really quickly, because knowing solfege better than the average session singer, it does set me apart from them. And so like I could draw a straight line between, okay, Mimi and my skill set as a session singer. The other thing I got out of it though is the community, and not so much from a teacher standpoint, because I'm not in touch with any of my teachers. Actually, there was one that I was still in touch with, and he recently passed away, unfortunately. He was very young, so it was really unexpected situation. But besides that, it's Chris. Like Chris, as a friend in my life, first of all, but also as my music director. Oh, shit.
No, we are not dating.
Okay.
Let the record show.
Let the records.
Oh my god. Knocking over audio equipment.
Wow, that worked
Thinking
well.
that we're dating. That was good. I think we call that a joke that lands, Anthony. This literally won't stay up. You can cut this out if you need to.
Okay.
Sorry.
We better put it on here.
Probably, actually. Good call. Yeah.
This will be good, though. If anybody's just listening to the audio, they can try and figure out what's happening.
Got an interface, a box that it's stacked on top of, some other items.
Gotta have a ghetto rig ready.
Ghetto rig. That's what
Simple.
we like.
Yeah, you were talking about people that you talked to from Columbia.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is really the only person I stay in touch with from Columbia. And the most impactful element of that is just his friendship as a human being. But also my music career wouldn't exist without him. He's my music director, the best bass player that you're going to find. Just extremely capable with coordinating and very like eager to teach. So like especially early on when I had no clue what I was doing, just like the culture of working with other musicians. There are many ways in which like either observing Chris or like things Chris would say checked me a lot and was like, oh, this is how it works. I see that. But Chris is not the average student at music school. And so it's hard for me to imagine, going to music school today and expecting anything close to that result. I think it was like almost like a divine intervention from God that like put Chris in my life in that way.
Nice.
Yeah, and I feel like, there's so much. I'm trying to put these things into categories. The first thing is like, I don't think that most colleges are really set up to really prepare people to go out into the music industry workforce and be successful. I also don't really think that, for the most part, that they're really able to. Like, I don't think it's necessarily the school's fault. I just think that, you know, the industry is what it is. And unless you have somebody that is in the industry and truly understands that industry, because if we're being honest, I mean, that's what 95% of students go to music school for. I feel like that's probably a high percentage, but maybe like 70, 80% are going to music school to become a professional in the music industry. And but most schools, most of the faculty are not in the music industry. Right. They're teachers. And there's nothing wrong with being a teacher. But being a teacher is great. I think being a teacher is great. Yep. But if you're teaching, you know, you should be learning from somebody who knows what you're trying to do. Yes. And so just the dynamic of a bunch of people that's trying to be a professional in the industry, getting taught by people who are not professional in industries, that can be problematic at times, because there's so many things about working that school can't and doesn't teach you. Right. Like, it's one thing to understand ear training. It's one thing to be able to sing well or play well, but it's a whole nother thing to be able to get gigs, keep gigs, be professional, network, all those kind of things like that. Now, schools like Columbia, Berkeley, and other schools that are kind of like in that vein, they actually do a much, much better job of that, because it is like this safer environment of like, it's almost like you're working in the school. Columbia's biggest selling point is that it's downtown Chicago. So there's so many musicians there. A lot of the faculty actually do work in that Chicago scene, and you can be plugged into that scene. Like, if you do what you got to do and you can really play. So I know for me, like, while I was going to school, I was working. So like while I was going to school, I was gigging. Like at the same time, I was, either on some gigs with the faculty or competing with some of the faculty at times, like for the same gigs and situations. So that's a great thing about Chicago and going to that school, Columbia. But the biggest thing is, like she said, is like the networking. Me personally, there's actually quite a bit of people from Columbia that I talk to, not only talk to, but work with. There's people here in Los Angeles that Alma being one of them, one of the primary ones, obviously. But there's string arrangers, there's vocalists, there's producers out here. There's a lot of people that I went to school with from Columbia, and there's also people that are graduates of Columbia that are out here in Los Angeles. So there's quite a few people that I talk to and work with from Columbia. I feel like schools are especially not set up for singers, because the dynamic that I have with musicians, I have to work with them all the time. I have to, and so that dynamic is there. Versus where singers, if they're working with other singers, it's a completely different. Like, that's not what they're trying to do when they graduate college. No. Like, when you worked with other singers, and jump in anytime if you want. When you sang with other singers, it was in essentially like a pop band, like a cover band, wedding band, or it was a vocal jazz choir ensemble or a choir ensemble. And I feel like 90% of singers aren't going to school to then be part of a professional choir. You know what I'm saying? Right. Yeah. And you have musicians that are trying to be. You have you have bass players that's trying to be the next Jocko or Marcus Miller. Right. You have drummers that are trying to be the next Dave Weckl. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, guys, it's not as exclusive. It's not as exclusive as the NBA, but it's still exclusive. Yep. If there's 1,000 students that are going to Columbia in a year, maybe one of them is going to be a star. And that's a maybe. Right. Maybe. Right. And we're in Chicago, so if there's going to be stars, we have like 30% of the stars. So with singers, it's an even higher threshold of how many Katy Perrys came from Columbia? You know what I'm saying? So you have, everybody goes to the school trying to be Katy Perry or Beyonce or some version of that. And it's like, we're really talking NBA odds there.
Right.
And so
I think the literal answer to how many Katy Perrys have come from Chicago is 0. Or from an art school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess Berkeley might have a few more, to be honest.
Yeah, Berkeley
but I don't
has
think Columbia. And this is I'm not trying to slander Columbia over here, but literally, like if someone has an example, I'm happy to acknowledge it. But I just don't think we have
the biggest star to my knowledge to come out of Columbia is Jonathan McReynolds.
Yes, Jonathan McReynolds.
I think the biggest star from Berkeley is Charlie Puth.
Oh, Charlie
John
Puth
Mayer?
went to.
Charlie, did John Mayer go to Berkeley?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, I don't know. But again, more so like
Who cares? First of all,
where they went.
Yeah.
But it's like it's so rare, and so that's not an issue. But I guess if we were to try, like my thing would be gear it more towards being a professional in the industry. It's like, hey, let's not try to be. I mean, shoot for what you want to shoot for, but as far as thinking that the school is going to be able to teach you that, like literally nobody at that school is Katy Perry. So how would they be able to teach you how to be Katy Perry? But if there are people at the school who played for Katy Perry, like they can teach you how you can become somebody that played for Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't even know. That it really is just such NBA odds that I don't think there's any obvious funnel that you can send singers through. Like, this is how you're going to achieve success. If there were, like, it would immediately cease to be that because everyone would know the secret and then we'd all be Katy Perry's, and that's just not possible.
Yeah, because stardom, like to that level or even a much lower level, it has something to do with your skill and your abilities, but also has so much not to do with your skill and abilities. Like that, we're not even talking about school curriculum at that point. It's just like there are so many factors into that you know.
Yeah, if I were designing a school for singers, I would like singers who wanted to be stars or wanted to have professional singing careers as an artist. I would probably use those 4 years to actually have them build a music career rather than have them like tool up for this music career that the teachers know nothing about how to actually achieve in the real world. Like year 1, I mean, like setting up a YouTube channel. How do you use basic equipment so that you can produce like somewhat okay sounding home recordings? Songwriting classes, obviously, but like even the songwriting classes, this is where I will just like slam Columbia for this. Not acceptable. We did not write nearly enough songs to like match the kind of output that would be expected of you if you're trying to make it as a songwriter or even a singer-songwriter that wants to like make quality work. Working with musicians, like how to interact with musicians, this is a cultural thing. You can't expect to not pay them, and yet how many singers walk out of Columbia thinking that like everyone's just gonna want to collab with you quote unquote for the rest of your life for free, which does happen in college because everyone's kind of at this baseline, like we're all just fumbling around learning things, but is not going to happen in the real world with anybody worth collaborating with in the first place. So like I would set up like year 1 like groundwork of the career, year 2 a little bit more, year 3 year 4 booking shows, like how to talk to the musicians when you're coordinating a show, how to maybe find a music director. I don't know the first thing about how to instruct someone in that area. I got very lucky. But a lot of singers don't even know what a music director is, and so maybe we could start there and give them the language that they would need to actually like ask for what they're looking for.
We just have very general majors right now, and especially in conventional schools, like that's definitely even much more of a problem. Like you have jazz studies major, you got classical major, and so in our, like I said, our school you have more, contemporary, urban, and pop. That's what CUP stands for. Yeah. But more to what she was saying, as far as like the 4 years of school instead of like whatever it would be like establishing a music career basically. And so I would say for musicians and for singers, I mean they're all musicians, for instrumentalists and singers.
You always get in trouble for that distinction. But I stand by that.
Can't not include anybody today. Anyway, so
it's pretty good. I like it.
You have to, let's take the career that you are trying to, when people go to engineering school.
Right.
Or to financing school or whatever things that are not of music. It's very simple. You want to be an engineer. These are the engineer jobs. These are the things you have to learn and do and be able to understand
Right.
and do successfully and with some amount of, doable speed in order to get that job. So it's
Right.
very clear. You want to be an engineer, you go to engineering school, this is the engineer job, this is what we teach you. When it comes to music, it is very much not that at all. It is like,
Right.
this is the job of a musician. And because there's so many more factors. There's more factors. Like this
Right.
isn't a fair fight. There's more factors into being in the music industry than there is to being an engineer. And
Right.
so, but if that is the job, like this is the job of to make a musician, then we need to teach those things. And we only cover simply like 80% of the music side, because they really only cover things that are in books. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
music theory, ear training, voice leading, all that
make it
kind of
sound
things.
so exciting.
Writing, notation. I mean, it's not exciting for the most part, but it's something that, you generally would want to know if you want to, get an edge over everybody else in this competition.
Right.
And so, but what about how to play with a band? What about how to find your part? What about how to adjust when somebody's not playing correctly? What about networking? What about, versatility? Like, you're a jazz studies major, then you're not going to have a lot of versatility unless you do that outside of that.
Yeah.
I've always been a whatever contemporary guy, pop and R&B and gospel. Like, but that's why I was a jazz studies major in school.
Right.
I was like, I'm in Chicago, so all the contemporary stuff, I can do that outside of school in Chicago. I need somebody to teach me this jazz stuff and show me that, and then you get versatility.
Yeah.
So basically, for me, I had a full school of what an ideal school. I had Columbia College for the on paper stuff, and I had Chicago for everything else. So if we could find some ways, difficult I'm sure, if we could find some way to combine those two into some kind of like institution or university, then that would be, I feel like, a much more useful thing. And
man, you're making me want to open a school.
Oh, we could,
I think there's a lot of ideas at odds here, because I think academia in and of itself isn't set up as a trade school system. It's sort of an elitist project by definition. And like Milton Babbitt was the first composition professor in the U.S. at Princeton. And what he said is he was explicitly not trying to help people get jobs. What he was doing was music experimentation, the same way that people in the linguistics department are trying to come up with new ideas about how linguistics works. He's trying to come up with new ideas about music. And that's what he's doing. And he's just doing like nerdy stuff in a department office somewhere. And he's happy with that. And that's kind of what I see a university as sort of being intrinsically, that kind of work, which is kind of valuable to society, but in a pretty peripheral way, not directly valuable to society.
Yeah.
And then I think there's this problem where these universities are sort of half flirting with being systems of trying to help people get jobs. But like what you were saying, you had the education of Chicago. And I don't know if you know Rick Beato, his YouTube channel. He's a producer. I think he's out of Atlanta, but he does a lot of cool music videos and stuff. And he was talking about how universities ruin jazz, and he was talking about the lickification of jazz education, and how if you wanted to become a jazz musician in the 50s, you just go hang out with jazz people for 10 years or so. There's nothing in school for it. And so when universities started bringing it in, they had to come up with curriculums. And so you're just practicing like 2-5-1 progressions all day long in every key and that kind of thing, because they need some kind of standardized system for teaching it and then sending out batches of musicians that sort of all know how to do the same thing.
Right.
But then that in and of itself is at odds with what a natural musical community is doing, because it's not like Thelonious Monk was spending all of his time practicing 2-5-1s. Not that he didn't do that, but that isn't actually what it's about. And so when it becomes too much of a technical product that ends up harming the output and the community, sort of the real community that's happening in the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not an expert at all, but like, if somebody goes to school to be a Spanish major or whatever other languages exist, the French, like major and whatnot, do they have to go there at some point?
I think there's usually some like semester that's encouraged. Yeah, there's often. I think my friend Brienne studied Spanish, and she had to do like some kind of immersion.
Yeah,
either had to or was like highly encouraged to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Like, I would enforce that as far as like, if you're going to learn a language, we can tell you all these books and these papers and formulas and math and yada yada yada, but it's a language, and music is the same exact thing. And that's just the language side. We haven't even addressed the business side, which is like I'm saying, that's that's a whole other thing. But even the language side of it, it gets overlooked a lot, and so it's harder to do. Like, if you're trying to learn French, then you got to go spend a semester or a year in France. You have to actually be there. You have to learn the language. You have to learn the intricacies. Not intricacies, what is it? The idiosyncrasies or whatever. I'm so bad with
Chris has his own language.
Words. Yeah,
speaking of those.
Language. I'm not a smart guy, so I went to music school. So, but you have to learn like all of these things by actually being in it. And so music would be the same. Right. But it is hard to figure out how to, like I said, I had Chicago. Right. So I was in it. Schools are trying to replicate the industry, but you can't replicate the industry when it's a bunch of people who are not in the industry. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? If your replication of the industry is another person who also knows the same amount that you know, then you're not going to get industry knowledge and like information.
And the problem too is like the industry is always changing. Right. There's some book that's really renowned in the music business community. I don't remember the name offhand. Maybe you know it, Anthony. But it's like how to make it in the music business. Like, blah, blah, and it's this book. Massive. Yeah. No. And it's actually. Dummies? I think it's actually the best. It sounds like the best that people have to offer, and it's constantly getting updated. Right. But even that book, like, it's constantly getting updated. So if you're not out there in the real world, like, that book is updating based on what's happening in the real world. So like, if you want to catch up to what's even close to current, like, you have to be out there. But it does come back to the goals. Like, if the goal is to just play around, like it's a science and you're just in a lab, then that's interesting. I don't understand how that like really serves the point of music much at all. Like, in any sense, like the communal sense, the professional sense. I don't know. Maybe I just lack the imagination here, but
I don't think so.
But yeah, especially at a place, especially at a pop school that's like trying to crank or convince you that if you go there, you could become a star. Like, good Lord, you need some kind of like field trips into the real world.
Like, I'm not trying to like, I don't know, discourage people from going to college.
I will. Don't go to college.
yeah, don't do it. You don't need it.
Especially if you're a singer. Don't go to college.
I mean, kind of like, depends on the school, depends on what you're looking for. I also, granted, I mean, when I graduated college in 2014. Yeah. It's 2021 now, so obviously the industry is completely changed. Yeah. And so I think the more as we go, like, I feel like not a degree, but I feel like my college experience was worth a lot more at that time than it would be if I were to go now. And
because of how the industry has changed.
Exactly, had that same experience. Yeah. And I don't know if the schools are updating and doing that kind of stuff, but honestly, like, going back to my school career and looking at what happened with Chuck Webb, I don't know. I mean, I'm, obviously still in debt from, college. I did 2 years at university and then 3 more years actually at a private school. Honestly, I don't know how much money that is. Like, what was it when we went there? It was like,
I think it was like 22.
22 a year? So 22 a year times 4 is like 80 grand. You know what I'm saying? And now, obviously, here's the difficulty is that you get loans and grants and things like that. Right. Honestly, though, 80 grand for all of that. And for me, it was, I guess, in the long run worth it. But I feel like I could have took over the span of like 4 years. I could have took like 8 or 10 grand, just paid like two different mentors and instructors. And honestly, I would have probably gotten maybe a better, like I get personalized, like individual instruction.
And it's not
somebody.
held back by all these like people that don't belong in the school in the first place.
Exactly.
Like there's no vetting, especially at Columbia.
None?
I'm gonna throw another shot at Columbia. There is no
What?
vetting. Like for all intents and purposes.
You pay the money, get in.
Maybe they cut out some like just awful singers, but I don't think they do because there are some just awful
Is there an
singers.
audition? Did you do
No
it?
audition.
Yeah,
What? There's no
They had no
audition?
idea. They had
That's
no idea if I
insane.
was. Yeah.
To be fair, you pay the
Columbia's
money,
not
you get
typical.
in. To
Nice.
be fair, Columbia had a lot of they have a lot of resources. There were recording studios, there are practice rooms, there's film rooms, and there's recording computers and Logic and stuff like that. I mean, there's a whole lot of resources that absolutely, if they cut out all the bad people or the bad musicians, that they wouldn't have the money to pay for those things. So it is kind of like a like choose your lesser evil, I guess.
Right.
Because that is one of the big factors of going to Columbia, is that there are practice rooms, there's ensemble rooms, there's cameras and, recording software and things like that, where, you go to another school, they're not going to have all those things, at least not to the quality that Columbia had them. But again, you are going to have a lot of students that don't really have any business being there.
And maybe it's their tuition that makes all of it possible. I don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, that actually, it just doesn't sound like a good trade-off to me. Like I agree. I don't know exactly where I sat in like my graduating class as a whole, because the people who graduate are different from the people who enroll. There's a huge dropout rate. I think it's like something like 80% or something insane.
That's
in Columbia.
so high.
Like a
80
lot of people. Yeah,
it's music school.
And I would imagine most of those would be singers and guitarists, which we just have an oversupply of in general. But I mean, there's plenty of reasons, even good reasons, why a person would drop out of music school.
Yep.
So I'm not.
Money's
Money's absolutely. I'm sure that's a huge reason.
Yeah.
But like when I think about some of those singing master classes, there is no reason why I, as the singer I am, should have been like toward the top, like 20% in those classes of talent. I'm an okay singer, especially at the time. Like I was an okay singer, but I was nowhere near the caliber that I would expect someone to be at a school that's for music.
I see.
And I would have loved to have been challenged. I would have loved to have been like in that bottom 20% or something.
Right.
And I think I would have grown a lot just from like the strict peer pressure of having to keep up with people who are incredible. And there are just not that many incredible people around us in the singing department.
Man, that's a bummer, because I feel like that is one thing that can push people to be much better musicians, is being around really high caliber people.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's one of the best ways to get better if you're struggling, I think, is play with players who are better than you.
Yeah. It's embarrassing to be sucking in public, And I would not like granted, I put in a lot of hours even as things were, because I really told myself, I was like, I'm here to practice. I'm going to be practicing. And I spent a lot of time. I mean, I remember being on the train. I was living on the north side, far north side, taking the train for an hour or more into school, and I would be listening to my ear training exercises over and over and over again, which I recorded myself in a practice. Like, so I was putting in the time, and every spare minute, it was like I was either listening to something that was for ear training or practicing something. But the peer pressure wasn't the thing doing it. It was just my own. I had to like find that motivation in and of myself. To improve, because my peers were not really helpful in that way. Now, granted, when you look at the graduating class, I think it's different. I don't know what your feelings are on this, like based on the singers you've seen, because you didn't have the pleasure of sitting through the classes with like the truly awful singers, because I don't know.
Yeah, I guess not really, because I was a jazz band, and then the cup bands that I was a part of.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
The best
those are very, very good. There's some fantastic singers. I think when I look at the people I actually graduated with, I'm like, okay, these are really wonderful vocalists. People I look up to, people who are actually still working. Like, I'm very impressed with the singer-songwriters in my year 2013. They're actually still doing their thing, but that that first year, especially like in the workshop classes on, you know, I don't even remember the names of these courses. They just didn't. It was, someone should have told these people they didn't belong in music school.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously the school wouldn't do that because they're not going to get any money. But yeah, somebody
you didn't have any tough professors or anything? I got told I shouldn't be in music school.
I mean, you have a couple guys like that. I mean, like Peter Sachs was a little bit like that. I don't think he ever told anybody like that they shouldn't be doing music school, but he was at least.
Yeah, he was a hard ass.
I loved Peter Sachs. He was great. But again, like that's the thing about these schools is you have certain teachers. Right. It is not embedded in the school. It's these certain individuals who are like, no, not that the other guys don't care, but it's like it takes an individual to be like, no, I am invested in like you personally. I'm going to give you the truth of the music business, the music industry from what I know. And, you know, that's something that, but that's definitely more of a personalized thing, which gets lost in academia, period. Like personalization in the first place. The interesting thing is as far as like the whole mentorship program, just like, because the thing is like your school is $20,000 a year, but you can get a loan for that. Could you get a loan? Could you get like an $8,000 loan to pay like just another person for a year?
I'm not exactly sure. You're nodding your head.
No,
Anthony.
I mean I don't know if you can, but yeah, it's a interesting
I think it's you'd probably need some family with credit. Like they're not going to be as indiscriminate with their loans as the federal government is.
And then especially since the whole individual thing, it isn't some nationally accredited program
it's not accredited.
That you would come out. But again, as far as a music degree is concerned, the nationally accredited part has.
Yeah, I mean, accreditation can go fuck itself. I'm so anti-accreditation.
It does nothing, but I feel like you'd have a hard time in, getting a loan for something that's not accredited.
I think it might be easier than you would think, but there would be hurdles that you'd have to jump through to make it happen, and they wouldn't be like...
Because, if I'm thinking about this, and obviously I'm guessing or whatever, I don't know this at all for exactly, but out of, everybody I know that went to Columbia, whether they graduated or did a semester or a year or whatever, from everybody that I know, which has to be at least 200, 300 people?
That you met in the music program?
Yeah, that I know that went to Columbia in the music program. Maybe 7 or 8 of them will make that money back with music.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone among the singers that will make that money back with music, because you have to be a superstar to pull that off. To be making money I guess session work. You can make money on session work.
Right, but that's the thing. But they don't teach. Yeah, they don't
even teach. I didn't even know what session work was.
Yeah, that's such a thing. And even as musicians, we didn't. I mean, I think we did a jazz session, and we recorded. If you were in one of the top bands, you would do a recording thing, but it wasn't in the sense of teaching you how to do a recording session.
Right.
And so that's the thing. And I'm talking about over a span of a lifetime, $80,000. Even less than that, but I could probably tell you maybe 6 or 7 people that I know that is over their lifetime they're going to make that money back with music.
Yep.
And I'm not saying I blame the schools, because I kind of understand their position, but I mean I more so just talk to people going to these schools, and I'm I'm gonna make that money back. If I haven't already, I think you have. I've made it already back now that I think about it. But again, I had Chicago, I had Chuck Webb, and also I'm really gifted and talented, and I work really hard. Honestly, when it came to music, I had everything. I had the opportunities.
Yep.
I had the mentorship. I had the college. I had the location. I had the talent, you know what I'm saying? There was no musical obstacle that I had to overcome, if that makes any sense.
So maybe you were going to make it anyway, and that was the path you went through, but there's probably an infinite number.
I was working when I was in school.
Right.
So I mean,
you could have saved the money.
I was working.
I do feel like it
I was working supporting myself like while I was at Columbia. Say that.
I mean, I was gonna say I think that you could have done it without the school, but it accelerated. But then I thought to myself, well, even if it had been just Chuck Webb, that alone would have accelerated you.
Yeah.
For much less money.
Yeah, Chuck. If I had going back, like if I would have known or whatever, I don't know how I would have gotten,
That's the thing.
Because
it
has to be worth it to that person too. Like I'm thinking, what is like an acceptable? Like if somebody asks me, like, "Hey, I want you to Chuck Webb me," or whatever. That's right. It's a verb now, guys. I want you.
Don't take this the wrong way.
I know, right? Actually, because it does sound kind of bad. But it's like, hey, I want you to Chuck Webb me. I'm trying to think, what is an acceptable like amount of money that's for them to give me?
Like $22,000, maybe.
Probably
a year.
That's a lot. Because I mean, I really have to meet with them probably like once or twice.
I think once or twice a week. I think would make like if you're actually trying to accelerate someone in a program.
Yeah. So a general lesson is what, like $70-$80. So if you do like 80 times 2, 160, do that times 52. So yeah,
but then there's another element. Like that person is like, as a mentor, you're bringing them to your gigs. Like you're introducing them to people. It's like this whole, almost like an excursion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All encompassing.
Exactly. And those things necessarily, wouldn't cost money. Honestly, this had to be somebody who would actually care. And be invested. But yeah, I feel like you could pay somebody, $80, 2 lessons a week. That's $8,000 a year. And I mean, school isn't even the whole year round, but you could do that if you want to.
I think it would take a little more than 2 lessons a week, though.
You think so?
Or at least 2 hours, more than 2 hours a week. I think it would have to be a little bit more extended.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. And I guess I'm thinking for stuff like, if I were to ever do this, I wouldn't be like, you get an hour on Tuesday.
Right, because you're like almost weaving that mentee into your life as a musician.
Because it's not
like the old style.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
apprentice.
It won't even be like just those 2 days or whatever. It's like, hey, I'm doing a gig, and yada, yada, you're going to be my tech. So that way you
there you go.
Yeah, you're my tech. So you're rolling with me. Like, you set up my stuff, but you also see how this thing goes, and you learn, yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's what I had in Chicago.
And if it's me, if I'm mentoring a singer-songwriter, I would say, again, it's like I focus on them building a music career, and everything that we're doing is oriented toward that. So then it's like, okay, we're going to produce a song for you, and I'm going to walk you through all of the elements of this, from finding the personnel or the one hub of a personnel and a music director to, operating the equipment if you need to, figuring out how to talk to your engineer and so forth. And so you're like holding their hand while they're going through the process. I think it's a little bit more challenging with the artist thing.
Yeah,
but it's also,
more
it's just different.
I mean, artistry is just...
It's more expensive. Period. Even as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's a much more expensive mentorship.
Yeah, but it's still cheaper than college.
Oh,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, college
cheaper.
is any school that's like that type of situation, Columbia, Berkeley, yada, 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 is going to be anywhere between 15 and 30 a year. You do 4 years
more.
at least.
Yeah.
So
40 sometimes.
So if we go with the least possible, we'll say 15 at 4 years. That's $60,000. Honestly, if you were to spend, like we said, $8,000, so let's go $10,000. If you're practicing, like working your ass off, because like we said, as far as college is concerned, after the first 2 years, you're not really, it's the connections you get after that. You work your ass off, $10,000, 2 years, and you're literally under somebody. Like if you're working your ass off, you're gonna get good.
Yep.
Over the span of 2 years, and if you're learning from somebody who's in the industry over 2 years, like it takes less than 2 years for people to start. I mean, it took Chuck, I think after I came in, I was like, yo, I want to do what you're doing. I want to do musical theater. And he just kept throwing all these James Jamerson transcriptions at me. And
so this was your private lessons?
Yeah, these are my private lessons with Chuck. We were only meeting once a week. So I was practicing at home, because that's what music is. Go home and practice. Like, we tell you this like 1 or 2 times, go home and practice. Like, that's really what it is. We would meet once a week. I'd practice, yada, yada. After like 6 or 7 months of that, after I grew in my sight reading, he was like, okay, I got to do this musical. I need somebody to sub for me. And it was Crowns. And so I did Crowns. And then all of that went well, because he prepared me to do that, and I practiced. And then once I did a good job on Crowns, I get that work experience of, okay, this is what it's like to work in musical theater. He had another show that came up, Motown. And then I subbed for him on Motown. And then it just... Yeah, so I feel like
that's amazing.
You could do like 2 years of this mentor thing at like $20,000, and you could make that money back, Yeah, you could make that back in less than a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't steal my idea. Steal mine.
Well, you gotta put on your website like the Chuck Webb package.
The Chuck Webb.
It's like always called the Chuck Webb
Webb
package,
me.
regardless.
I love it.
You could do different tiers, like your relationships with different professors too. Like
Yes.
one of them is like they meet with you and a bunch of other people once a week, and you don't really get a whole lot out of it.
The Peter Sachs package where he just yells at you and calls you, like, tells you you're terrible.
But he said real fast. Yeah, because now just going back on my career, and I feel like I'm talking a whole bunch, so I'm gonna stop.
No, it's good.
But I feel like my whole career, like Columbia College, I think it's I think any school is like, generally going to be like a decent school for what they're designed for. But that's the thing. I don't believe these schools are designed for people to go and make a living in the music industry.
Right.
The biggest things that I got from Columbia was connections, including Chuck Webb, including the people that I work with, my network of people, and playing experience. That was a big thing. You get a lot of playing experience at a place like Columbia, Berkeley, and other places like that. So those things are big, but
That's huge.
it's a mentorship.
Yep.
It's people that was in the industry. My father, you know what I'm saying, Sheree Reed, Chuck Webb, Daryl Archibald, like people that I've worked with. It's people that I've worked with in the industry, who worked in the industry, that I spent time around, that I studied, that I paid attention to, and they answered my 40,000 questions. Again, personalized. Like, so, and yeah, there's not really those things that I ask questions about. They don't even happen in an academia situation where you would ever think to ask the question, because it's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially in the vocals department, that's not happening. And the people teaching in academia are not working nearly as much as Chuck Webb was working even. So like it's further handicapped by that. And all respect, I mean, I loved H.E. Bacchus, who was, I think, the head of the music department at the time. I think he's retired now. Was my private lesson teacher for my last year or last semester, and I got a lot out of my lessons with him as a vocalist. But I didn't get anything close to that kind of mentorship. H.E. wasn't working as a singer, so there was no Motown gig for me to sub in on.
Right.
Not that would even. Can you
go sing
imagine?
the bass part.
H.E. wasn't on that.
Yeah. I mean, there's not
one role for you.
It's laughable, like, because those. Oh my God, it's laughable because even if he had been singing on stage in some musical, you can't just sub in a student the way you can sub in a bass player. You know, like I'm not in the pit. Like the singer is on the stage. Maybe if there's some choral role, but again, I didn't come to Columbia so I could sing in a choir.
Right.
I got a lot out of my choirs. In fact, they were like some of the most musically challenging groups or like classes that I had. But there's just no analog to what an instrumentalist can get. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know. The singer-songwriter thing is its own animal. There is no program that's going to be perfectly designed for any given person's like dream career.
Well, one thing that the one of the music history professors at UW said to us in our freshman music history course, which I thought was wonderful. He said two things. He said, number one, there's no such thing as a historical fact. That's
my boyfriend says that all the time.
That's great. And then number two, none of you need this. This is something that the department has deemed like compulsory. But I believe that all of you could go out and be wonderful musicians and have zero idea about anything Bach or San Martini or Josquin or any of those people ever did. And what was interesting is the jazz people got really mad. And they were like arguing about how important knowing the history was. And he's like, no, you can play a great solo without knowing the history. And maybe knowing history can help you in informative ways in referencing and understanding traditions and sort of deepen how you internalize it. But you don't need it. You can be great without all that stuff.
I like teachers that are honest like that.
Yeah. That was pretty interesting.
It's a language. And, that just means so many things. I mean, that's also not taught in school. Like, music is a language. They might say it, like, once or twice throughout the course of the year, but there's a lot that goes into that. Also, like the things like we've said so many times, and when we say it's an NBA thing, we mean every year the NBA draft 60 players. So literally out of the entire world, like the entire world, with that's how many people? It's like 4 billion or something like that, or whatever.
7 billion.
7 billion. That's a lot more. That's almost double. So yeah, out of like 7 billion people, they draft 60 each year, and out of those 60 don't even stay in the NBA even for that year. And when it comes to music, it's the same. It's not as difficult as the NBA, obviously, because there's more opportunities than 60 a year. But when you do the opportunities versus people who are trying to do it, if you had to guess off the top of your head, like how many touring artists are there, like in the world?
In the world.
Like I don't even know.
I don't know. You would have a much better idea of that.
Yeah, I mean, I could be super, because I'm terrible with like guessing big numbers and whatnot. But if there's like, if there are like 300 touring artists.
You mean like headliners or all
no,
the
just like
musicians
touring. No, I'm talking about like, okay, so people who are actually going to make a career. So the average salary for a single person, I think, in America is about $30,000 a year. Like the median, I think it's something around there.
Maybe.
Like, I don't know. So yeah, I think like the middle, like average salary for a single person in America is around $30,000 a year. So let's just say any touring act that if you play for them, you would make above $30,000 a year. Because there's an unbelievable amount of touring acts that you will not make $30,000 a year from. So get rid of all of that. Touring acts that are going to make $30,000 at least a year. There may be like 250, 300 of those within a year. So
in the whole world.
In the whole world,
like Billboard Hot 100, it's not 100 different artists, but it's not 50 artists.
Right.
It's something like 60, 70.
So you're thinking less?
I think it's actually more.
You think it's more?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of all the K-pop, when I think of, like, there's, I guess the U.S. produces a lot of them. England produces a lot of them.
Well, how many would you say are in the U.S. though from that? Like 60?
In the U.S.?
U.S. is going to have the most.
I think that in the U.S. there's got to... we're just guessing. I'm very bad at estimating. I feel like in the U.S. there's something like 100, 200. 100,
200?
Maybe.
So there may be 400, 500, because U.S.
And they're not all touring at the same time.
Well, no, but I'm saying within a year.
Okay.
Like, I'm not talking about like at the same time, like within a year. Like,
I mean, Sam Smith is going to tour one year, maybe Fergie is going to tour the next. And I would still want to count them.
So yeah, we could. No, I'm just going from year to year to year.
Okay. Like, so I don't know. I mean,
basically what I'm saying is like for me as a bass player, right? There's maybe 500.
It's in
spots.
the hundreds.
There's 500 spots
right
in the entire world. That's gonna make me at least 30. Make me a decent salary in America that is needed to survive on. Not to mention we're trying to survive in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, which are you need more than $30,000 a year to do. So 500 spots. So but in just my school, Columbia, which was not a big school, there's 50 bass players. Something like that, 50, 60 bass players. And then that's just one school in Chicago. Yep. There's, 10 schools in Chicago. So there's your, you got about 300 bass players right there. You do 2 cities. Los Angeles, there's probably about 300 bass players in Los Angeles in college every year. Right. We only did 2 states. And that's literally all the bass spots that are available in the world.
The entire world, yeah.
That's true. There's other kinds of work, though, because... The
absolutely.
Players,
so I was saying,
the bass players up at Northwestern and UChicago are probably going more for orchestral spots. And
right, but that's the thing. Orchestral is even. I was going to go further. Orchestral is even harder to get into than the NBA. Right. You get into one of those big orchestras or whatever, you have that spot for like 60 years. They have like one spot open up every I don't even know what. It's harder to get into that than it is to the NBA. Also, when you go to sessions, movie sessions, film sessions, TV sessions, Oscars, Grammys, it's the same people.
Yep.
It's the same 10 people. It's not one person doesn't play bass for the Grammys one year and then another person plays it the next year.
Right.
And the Oscars and the Governor's Ball and these kind of things like that. Like there's a rotation of maybe 4 to 5 bass players. And it's not even a rotation. It's just like over the last like 30 years, like maybe 5 different bass players have played in, those things.
So
they call the same people for the film sessions, for the whatever sessions. So it's like I said, it's like NBA odds. And so that's the first thing that not schools, people who are trying to be musicians, people who are trying to be singers, people who are trying to be artists, that's the first thing that people need to realize. Is that it is not as simple as, even if you're good, that you'll make it.
I guess what I'm encouraged by is that as an artist, there are so many other ways to make it. Well, actually, I mean, certainly as a musician too, but that's where even like the DIY build a music career in 4 years thing would be really helpful. Is like you can be independent and you don't have to tour. Like on recording music alone, like if I hustled, I completely believe that I could have like a self-sustaining career in this, even just on like the kind of money a person can make on YouTube if I worked toward it and actually like wanted that. And even if I couldn't, someone else in my roughly my same skill set could. So I know that there are way more slots now that the music industry is more democratized. But do you think Columbia is teaching that even? Like nothing, I mean, not, again, no shade to Columbia specifically, but there's no school that can like,
a little bit
teach you. Yeah, a little.
I mean, just schools, period. And Columbia and Berkeley would do a better job than the conventional for your universities. But they're definitely not.
You know what's one thing that stood out to me from I'm not going to name the name of this teacher, but like one of the voice teachers at Columbia essentially structured her class, her voice workshop around the idea that most of us probably weren't going to make it in the industry as singers, and so we might as well learn how to teach. And so there's this whole class about singing that she structured around how to teach singing, because she was more hopeless than we were about our own prospects, which is fair. She should be hopeless about it, especially since most of us sucked. But
she's like, what am I going to do?
Right, exactly. There's not this dichotomy, though, between like touring with Katy Perry or being Katy Perry and teaching. Like there's a lot of stuff in between.
That's a super important point. Yeah. I ran into this with my family when I was going into music, and the idea that there is only being a superstar or being like on the street or something like that, when actually it is a much less centralized landscape than that. And I think there's a problem with these centers, like you mentioned, like LA and New York, and then Chicago to a point, where there's this idea that you have to get in to all the Hollywood films or all the big session gigs and stuff, when actually there is musical work happening all over the country, and there is something to working towards decentralizing that, because I think what that will allow people to do is exist at multiple tiers and multiple levels. So the Katy Perrys will still be there, but what about like the Austin film industry? They need musicians, they need session players, they need stuff like that too.
Yeah, I'm really pleased, and this is what pisses me off when artists in particular act like they're entitled. Like there's this whole like, just like there's a support local businesses movement, there's like a support local and small artists movement. Even if you're not good, like you deserve their support because you're small. Yeah. This is like a whole other episode with Chris.
Yeah. I got in trouble for a status about this some years ago.
Oh,
keep going.
Oh yeah.
It's exciting.
But yeah, like there's a lot of complaining, like artists, oh, it's so hard to make it, and I'm like, what do you mean by make it? Because in most senses of the word, it's never been easier. And yeah, there's a lot more competition because everybody can just buy Logic and record their own shit
sucks.
and like post it on. A lot of them do.
So be better than them.
Yeah, you have to be better.
But the entitlement is
ridiculous.
Your whole entire career choice is subjective. Yep. Like it's literally like the entirety of your career is like you, and it being successful or not is literally based off of whether people like it or not, which is not ingrained in any kind of like, specific science or formula or fact.
Right.
Like, and so yeah, the entitlement, especially when it's something that nobody told you that you had to do.
In fact, people told you that you shouldn't do it because of this very problem.
Yep.
Like, you're never going to make it. It's hard, blah, blah, blah.
And you're like, fuck you, Dad.
Yeah. I'm going to be punk rock. I'm going to do what I want. And then there'll be a scene at the end where, like, the dad walks in when you're playing a huge stadium tour and he's so proud of you, like a Disney movie. And
he gives you, like, a nod.
It's just not. The knowing smile and nod.
The first thing, like the two of you were saying, the first thing that I would address would be, the students, the potential students, because you're right as far as like there's a lot of things to do, but if we're being honest, like what are 95% of 18-year-olds going into music school to do? They're not going in there to, even if it's not to try to be Katy Perry or Steve Gadd or whatever, like what working in the industry is, that is definitely not their expectation or their mindset. So the first thing I would do would be like tethering expectations for these young students. Maybe talk to them in high school, like before they go to college. And it's not to discourage them. It's to give them the actual truth and the lay of the land so they can actually make an informed decision, and not one that is just based on, you know, flashing lights and fancy tours and, you know, money and mansions and music videos, because that's very much what the music industry is. Even when you get into the music industry, like that's not what it is. My father said this best. He was like, so what? What's the biggest concert lately? The Beyonce Coachella thing, right? Like, so the Beyonce Coachella, they did 2 nights at Coachella. The concert is probably about 3 hours long. So they did 2 shows back to back. So that's 6 hours of show. And my dad said, he was like, son, like the music industry is not that. He said, that's 6 hours. They did that for 4 months.
Yep.
They spent 4 months, like anywhere between 4 to 8 hours a day to do 6 hours.
I have a friend who was on the Beyonce Coachella show a couple years ago, and like when she was telling about what the rehearsal process
what did she
was
do?
like, Ria
Okay,
Hassan.
What was she, a dancer or a singer? Or
Violist.
Violist. Oh wow, yeah, because they had like a whole freaking pep band over there.
Yeah. It was like 4 months of like 5 days a week, 9 to 5. And apparently most of it was just sitting, not doing anything.
Yeah, because there's so many people and so many things involved. So basically just like tether expectations. But I had people that told me this, again, the people that I named prior. But those are people who are not teachers at an academic school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, yeah, but that's what those kids are going to school to do.
But it's just academia versus trade, I think. It's are you an academic with your music? Are you there to think about music, or are you there to do music? And I feel like those two they're at odds with each other, and they almost don't belong in the same place. Or if they do, there need to be like tracks that allow for those different paths.
Yeah.
I find myself wondering what school would look like if you had a more informed group of kids going in and really weeded out like the garbage ones.
Well, it's kind of
I even wonder if I would have made that cut mentally, like by choice or by the choice of the school.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Like you're not allowed to go to college until you're 30.
Not quite that, but like until you can
artist,
actually like sing on.
Artist music career would be almost over by that time.
Yeah, seriously, as a female, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's almost kind of like that, the thing that I've told you about as far as like the entity or whatever, or like the school and whatnot. Like it's much more like a solution to this. Obviously it wouldn't be like an accredited situation, but it is like
oh yeah. Do you want to talk at all about that, or are you going to conceal
really.
it? Okay, yeah. Top secret information.
Yeah, I mean, where are we? Yeah.
So Chris is in the FBI, and
yeah. But yeah, no, it's. Yeah, I would just tether. People told me what it was, and not from the sense of like, oh, just like, oh, you can make it. Like, in fact, I wanted to be in the NBA when I was younger, but my father, he didn't discourage me. He was like, okay, you want to commit to one of the NBA, then I'm gonna show you what that means. And in him showing me through talking to me about it and teaching and studying and going out in the court every day and having to take 2 buses and walk them out and get to a basketball court to, you know, practice and get up in the morning, do this and that. After like 2 months of that, I was like, yeah, nah. Like, if this is what it takes, if this is what it's like I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, because when I was younger, I saw basketball games. You see what I'm saying? When I was younger, exactly. I saw Coachella. When I was younger, I saw Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan just dunking on people, and I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome! I totally want to do that." But they don't show They don't show Kobe Bryant waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, going to the gym and shooting 100 shots for an hour and then go home, pick up his daughter or whatever, eat some vegetable juice and some, kale or whatever, and then go back to the basketball court and do it again. They don't show that. Musicians, they don't show how many hours that I practiced that I didn't get paid for? You know how much time that I put into this instrument, to this craft? You know how many terrible gigs that I've done. You know how many gigs that I've lost out on. It's all kinds of crazy things that is not advertised in Coachella. And it wouldn't be advertised in that. And the school is definitely not going to advertise that because it draws their students away, which is their money, which is the whole reason they can exist in the first place. So it's kind of just the system. I don't blame the schools. The system that it's set up in is not a system that is designed to make a successful entertainment career.
It's the entertainment is key. This is a thing that I think probably not Columbia and Berkeley, but most universities resist, is the idea that music is entertainment versus the idea that music is an intellectual pursuit or something like that. And I think that any good professor will realize it because even their lectures are entertainment to a degree. They're performing, and so they have to capture their audience. And I think that academic music education focuses almost zero on what it is to capture an audience, what it is to be a performer on stage, beyond playing your instrument well.
Which defeats the entire purpose of what students, believe they're going to school for.
Yeah, so what that you can play Bach.
Industry. Yeah, nobody's going, maybe 1 or 5 people, but nobody's paying $80,000 for 4 years to go to Columbia to be I just really want to understand the academics of music. That voice leading stuff is fascinating.
I do. That is actually my main.
You gonna pay $80,000 to secure your fascination?
No. I'll just do it on my own. But yeah.
You've got me playing out the scenario where I have a daughter or something, and she's like, "Mommy, I want to be an artist." And then I just there's so many things. First of all, no, but second, there really are so many better paths. I think just objectively, almost regardless of what her goal is, unless she just wants to appease her fascination with voice leading.
Yeah. See, it's weird thinking about that because if I have a kid, when I have children or whatever, and most likely at least one of them will want to be a musician, I definitely wouldn't discourage them, but that's because I know that I can show them.
Yeah, you're fully capable.
Do what needs to be done, like my father.
I know that you're capable of that too, so I wouldn't discourage it either. Just send them through you.
Right. But
the filter. What if they wanted to be academic?
Would I send them to college?
My daughter would not want to be academic.
Yeah, neither would mine. Yeah. Would I send them to college? And see, I have an interesting relationship with college because me personally, I did get so much from college, but it wasn't the academia part. Obviously the academia part is also important. It's something that you need, but it's something that can be addressed outside of school. So I had a really great experience in college, and for me it's done a lot, but I don't think college is that same thing when I have kids. Also, the industry is so different. So that's actually interesting to think about. What route would I send my children on if they wanted to be I
was thinking about this just with general, honestly, homeschooling, even of elementary to high school kids. I know some very, very bright people in very various fields, and it is very appealing to me and seems possible, maybe it's pie in the sky, it probably is, to just assemble a crew of my smartest friends who know how to teach math and English and geometry and whatever, and have them tutor my kid in those things. That actually seems way less of a waste of time, way cheaper than private school, and just better and more fun and enriching, and they're hanging out with adults. But of course, I guess what's missed in that, even in that scenario, is hanging out with all the other bogus kids that they need to learn how to cope with in the real world. Right. And that's something that being in a school is probably good for. I don't know. There's a social element to it, and navigating that was pretty important for me.
Yeah, 100%. That's probably one of the 3 biggest things that I got from Columbia is the interaction, the socializing, that mini fake industry experience that existed there. So yeah, I don't know. There's arguments for and against. I wouldn't steer my kids towards school because the reason why my father put me in school is because he was very, very successful musician, but he wasn't well rounded. And he knew that by the time that I was going to try to get into the industry that it was going to change. So he knew that I would need to be considerably more well rounded and versatile than he was.
In music?
And so since he wasn't that, he couldn't teach me that. So what he did, it was like, go to school, learn there what I'm not able to teach you, but I'm going to teach you all the stuff that they are not able to teach you.
Is that versatility of style, or what is that? Yeah,
style, reading, the academia part, music theory, all those kind of things.
And your dad actually pushed you toward that. That's like, that puts a whole new spin on you being at Columbia, or you being in school.
Yeah, because he knew that I was going to need that. By the time I got into the workforce, he knew that it was going to change.
And that's been proven true.
Oh, 100%. Okay. If I didn't do the stuff that he told me to do, I wouldn't be able to be doing how I'm doing, basically.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a very positive note to leave people with.
Yeah, I think so.
My positive note is that Chris is by far the greatest thing that ever came out of college for me. I got a roommate out of it.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
A roommate, not a boyfriend.
Not a boyfriend.
We remember when we met. We were sitting, and again, the social aspect. It's just, she's my best friend. It's been like I don't know what, like 10 years.
10 years.
Like that. Yeah, so long. Like we were hanging out.
I was eating
Columbia.
Yogurt on the floor. Not much has changed.
Yeah.
And you've made some music together, right?
Oh yeah.
Nice. So I usually end with an improvisation, but we were talking about playing your track King, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right. Well, this is King.
I never let the joker out my sight. Never went broke on an all or nothing. Never made a bet so out of line till I met you and I hit the ground running. And now I must say I've never seen so much weakness in one place. It was a 20-inch bicep with no strength, 'cause you've been wrapping it around all the wrong things. And you were singing my praise, saying I'm magic. And then you turn back, oh baby, what happened? That was all in the minute I found you. Ready and set, and willing to crown you. Never should a joker catch my eye, but I looked over and I caught some feelings. Saw a couple things that I really liked, but you got caught up in the big daydreaming. It's what you don't say. It's like a pretty black Cadillac with no brakes. It's like your girlfriend lying through your bold face. I'm just a side chick laying down a cold case. And you were singing my praise, saying I'm magic. And then you turn back, oh baby, what happened? That was all in the minute I found you. Ready and set, and willing to crown you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Alma. Thanks for coming on. It was an awesome talk. A lot of cool stuff to think about. And I'll link to all of your social medias and everything so people can find you. Check out Alma's recent podcast on Braver Angels. And yeah, talk to you guys later.
Nice. Thanks for having us, Anthony.
Bye, everybody.
Go college.
All right, thanks for listening or watching. Remember to check out Alma Cook and Chris Thigpen. They are both musicians in the Los Angeles area with links below. And please remember to leave a comment, and subscribe to my channels. And if you would like to consider supporting my content generally, please consider visiting my Patreon page. Thanks. Bye.